And out of the ground the Lord God made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the previous study, I brought the idea of pleasant to the sight and good for food, 1 John 2:16, as symbolizing the lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh, respectively. The word lust is defined by Strong's as a longing, basically meaning desire. For this reason, the ESV renders lust as desires in both cases. I also proposed in the previous study that we are creatures of pleasure, moved by our longings or desires. Putting it simply, pleasure equates to our need for gratification, for receiving what we long for, whether good or bad. No doubt, we are designed to seek pleasure in the physical, emotional, and psychological realms of our existence. When Paul wrote Timothy concerning the last days and times of difficulty, he began his 18-point discourse with lovers of self and ended with lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. 18 is the number of oppression or bondage. This is appropriate, for 18 is the sum of 3 sixes, pointing to the mark in Revelation 13:16 through 18, where the buy and sell in verse 17 refers to what we give in exchange for our life or souls. In this day and age, we've given ourselves over to our love of the self and pleasure and our desire for instant gratification, effectively destroying ourselves from the inside out. Now, here's the amazing thing. Love is the root of pleasure, meaning fond of or have affection for. Since God is love and we are made in His image, and all that we do is out of love, even those deeds done in darkness. We learned that Adam was allowed to eat of every tree of the garden that was good for food and pleasant to the eyes, the tree of knowledge being the exception. Following this, we come to Genesis chapter 3 in what is known as the temptation story, where the serpent compels Eve and Adam to eat from this tree. It's important to keep in mind that the tree of knowledge symbolizes the law of God. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Unlike the other trees of the garden, a third component is mentioned regarding the tree of knowledge, a tree desirable to make one wise. Now think about that for a moment. Make one wise. In this case, wise regarding God's law. No doubt this is a good thing, especially when we're told wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And the Apostle James tells us, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given him. Yet Adam and Eve are told not to eat of this tree. So if wisdom isn't the problem, what is? It's the appearance and presence of the serpent. Now, put on your thinking caps, because I'm going to talk more abstractly at this point. Let's go back to 1 John chapter 2 for a moment. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. All that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever. How does John describe all that is in the world? As the lust of the flesh and eyes and the pride of life, what the concordant literal New Testament renders as the ostentation of living. To be ostentatious means to display wealth, knowledge, or other qualities in a flashy, showy, and pretentious way to attract attention, admiration, or envy from others. Their actions and manner are characterized by excessive display, often with the intention to impress or appear superior, rather than out of genuine humility or modesty. Hello, social media. Thanks to tradition, most folks see the serpent as a fallen angel of sorts, perhaps using a snake to talk, something outside of Adam and Eve that came of its own will into a literal garden to screw up the master plan of an omnipotent creator. Friend, if we can put aside such imaginations, I will present an alternative view that I believe is much closer to reality. Instead of seeing the serpent as a fallen angel or talking snake or something outside of Adam and Eve, think pride of life, something within. After all, pride, that is the inordinate love of the self, is not a tangible component, but an invisible one. With this in mind, reconsider the following. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. It is better to be of a lowly spirit with the poor than to divide the spoil with the proud. Adam and Eve fell. What brought this fall? The serpent. Not a fallen angel or talking snake, but a haughty spirit. Now, note the following. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. Following the creation of the woman from the man, we're told that both were naked, but not ashamed. After eating from the tree of knowledge, we read this. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. Once they succumbed to pride and ate from the tree of knowledge, we're told that the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. Then they sewed fig leaves together in order to cover their nakedness. Before they ate from the tree, they were naked and not ashamed. But after they ate, they were ashamed. Let's bring this to the following. When pride comes, then comes shame. But with the humble is wisdom. In other studies, I have proposed that the fig leaves Adam and Eve used to make coverings comes from the same tree they ate from, that is, the tree of knowledge or law of God. Figuratively speaking, they attempt to cover their disobedience by sewing fig leaves together, representing the deeds of the law. What does Paul say? By the deeds of the law, no flesh will be justified in his sight. Just a few verses later we read, Therefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith apart from the deeds of the law. Are you beginning to see why God said don't eat from this tree? In the first 6 verses of Genesis chapter 3, pride becomes quite evident. First, in the serpent's statement, has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? When the woman replies, They will die if they eat or touch this tree, the serpent says, You will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This, of course, is a lie, contradicting God's command to Adam in Genesis 2:17. Who is the first man, Adam? The natural man. So we're not talking about a particular individual, but of an inward essence and inability to receive the things of the Spirit of God. Ever wonder why the serpent approaches Eve and not Adam? I believe it's because Eve represents the emotional aspects of the natural man, a place of love and desire corresponding to 1 John 2:15 through 17. Since pride is the inordinate love of the self, this seems to make sense. So let's ask again why partaking of the wisdom of God's law was forbidden for Adam, the natural man. First, because the natural man cannot receive the things of the Spirit of God. They're foolishness to him. And when pride arises, this is a different thing entirely. For when a person of pride decides to take hold of the law, they become lifted up within themselves, using the law as a means for religious bigotry. I'll stop here, but be sure to join me in the next study. Much more to consider. I sincerely thank you for being a part of Grain of Wheat Publishing.